My daddy uses Anchor to publish his podcast, and he loves it. Not only can he record, edit, and distribute on this platform, but he can make money at the same time, all for free. If you too would like to get started on your own podcast, go to the website anchor.fm or download the free Anchor app. Don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for listening. Have a great day. Let's go!
So close, I know, no. You ain't got to tell me so, 'cause I already know, no. Got my eye on the goal, too close, I know, no. You ain't gotta tell me so, 'cause I already know. I was summoned by God to be the greatest.
Welcome to another episode of Third Eye Podcast, the podcast that is dedicated to creating open dialogue regarding any and all difficult topics. I am your host, Marcus Callahan, and thank you very much for joining me. On this week's episode, we have a guest hailing all the way from the UK. Yes, London is in the house. She is a company director and business coach, but she is so much more than that. Please welcome Miss Caroline Stagg.
Hello.
Welcome to Third Eye Podcast, Caroline. I appreciate you being here.
It's a pleasure. I like to do these things. It's good to talk about what I do. So
That is awesome. So for everyone who will be listening who doesn't know you, can you tell us a little bit about your background and how you got started as a company director and coach?
my dad was a company director, and so I saw that from a very young age. Like when I was less than 7 years old, I remember, things happening at work and things being like my mum telling me that he'd had stuff like that. I was terrified actually, because I thought it meant something much, more important for us as a family at the time. So yeah, I had being this kind of managing director of an engineering firm, that was his thing, and we moved house in order for him to get new roles and that kind of thing. And but what I really sort of saw what he was under, and the sort of stress that he was under as well. He was a really sort of driven kind of person, so there was all of that going on in the background. And then of course, as I got older and I was looking for work, it's easy to fall in you see what you see as you're growing up. And so then I went into leadership, and I was working in like publishing companies or media. But originally I sort of worked my way around various roles, but I had some insane roles. Actually, it's like a financial newspaper in the city of London, and it was because it was financial news. It was really, really, like hot off the press stuff. And sometimes, like at 9 o'clock in the morning, and I would go home at 3 o'clock in the morning on the next day and stuff like that. So I took a lot of my dad's stuff with me. And then as I went on, I worked in other publishing companies that were slightly, but that's how I got started, and then became a company director of a business which is a stakeholder relationship business. So it's kind of different from those roles that I had before. And now I have another business which is in because of what happened with my dad. I have a business where I help sort of high-powered exec kind of life balance and to enjoy their life as well as being amazing leaders. Because for my dad, pushed him ill, and he didn't realize that he was ill. And actually, it was his becoming very ill quite quickly was kind of what saved him, because otherwise I don't think he would have made it. He was just carrying on in the old ways, not realizing, how ill he'd become. Once that happened, my dad completely changed his perspective, but it took that real jolt and that illness, which he lived with then for 30 years, but it had a much better quality of life. And after his after his diagnosis, and when he got better, golf, and he started sort of relaxing a lot, and him and my mum went on holidays and stuff like that, which was like just they didn't do that before. So that's the work that I'm doing more recently. Is from coming from that perspective, having lived that life, is now to kind of a more healthy way of living and working, that really works for them.
That is really awesome. It's always nice when you have perspective, so to speak. I think one of the main reasons why I started this podcast is because I noticed that, on the internet and even within my circle of peers, whenever there's a discussion involving like a really heavy topic,
Mhm.
people tend to get defensive and then they
Right.
can lash out
Mm.
at each other. So a big part of why I do this is to try and help people communicate more efficiently. Um, what roles do communication play when it comes to the way you coach your clients?
Oh, huge. And is almost the whole thing, because it just makes such a difference. Just whether, in whatever role you have, because leadership is a role that anyone can have, we're all leaders, really. Whether we lead ourselves, we lead in our families, we lead, groups, that, it's about the way that you lead, and the way that you communicate is just everything, really. Brilliant person, but if you can't get your ideas across in a way that they land with other people, then your impact is reduced. And so one of the tools that when I start working with people, I always use like a profiling tool, which is about behavior, so that they can kind of understand the way that they not only communicate with others, but about the world, because we all think that we're normal, and yeah, and we all sort of think that we're being the way that we are approaching things, or the way that we talk to people, or all of that kind of stuff. And there's like saying, so do unto them, do unto you. But I think that that is broken, really, because not everybody wants to be spoken to. Like, everybody likes to be told to do things the way that I like to be told to do things, or that kind of thing. So rule, and now we're using the platinum rule, which is to treat other people how they would like to be treated, uh, to communicate that the message would land for them. And so I think that that's quite a thing to take on if you don't really understand. Quite a lot of time working with clients about how to engage with people on important things, so get it, and then they are much more on your side, and it's much easier to work with people when they've got that same understanding as you. To behave is something that we're often not aware of, but it kind of dictates the way that we get our results. If you can become more flexible in the ways that you communicate, then you actually have a chance of changing your results. So that can be very powerful.
I definitely agree with that.
Good.
Absolutely. I think one thing I noticed, because I'm a father of three,
Hmm.
um, one thing I did notice as I was thrust into this leadership role of my family,
Right. Yeah.
uh, the communication between my wife and I, it often break down because we weren't often speaking the same language, so to speak. We had to learn how to communicate effectively with each other, and in turn, were able to use that to communicate with our children better. Uh, and I think it's helped our family life tremendously. Uh, and one of the things that I'm constantly reminding myself of, is that change is it's inevitable and it's always happening. And in order to embrace change, you have to keep an open mind and an open heart often. What advice would you give to someone going through a major life change, good or bad?
But having an open heart, I think that's really important. So for people going through major life changes, I was speaking to someone who just this morning. I think it's to just go back to what's important to you. I'm getting clear on your values and beliefs, because I think those just are running the show anyway. That's what's going on, behind. And while it may not be in our awareness, it's really good to just go back to what's important to you. So, in the family, that may be, providing that sort of stable, loving family environment for your children, or, and understanding where that comes to. So obviously we have to work in order to bring in money to feed the children, and to, to give them some kind of quality of life. But we might have to give up things in order to do that. And which things do we give up, and what's really important? What's the most important thing as a father in the way that you do your fathering? Your parenting is, the co-parenting that you do, and how you navigate that as a couple is, isn't it? And so I sort of think that in that way, it's if you get in touch with what's really important to me. So say, for me, it's really important for my children to feel a warm family environment, and to know that thing means that if they come to me with something that I don't like, I have to be very careful how I handle that. If I set myself up as you can always come to me and tell me anything, then I have to accept that sometimes they're going to
Right.
come to me with something that is to deal with, and that's what I'll have to do, is deal with it.
Right, right, right. um, I've always tried to stay open and be the type of person that you can come to me with anything, and like you said, if you position yourself that way, then you have to be open. You have to be, even if someone comes with with something that you're not necessarily going to like. If that's how you're presenting yourself, then you have to be open to that. And I think it's really important.
I think if you look at the sort of most extreme examples of maybe, like, if your child did something awful to someone, and maybe it looked like they were, going to go to court, or possibly even end up in prison. It's just like, they have to have terrible things, need to have someone who can see the good in them through, otherwise there's no hope, is there? It's almost like you have to take that stand for them going to prison, but then you would have to go and visit them in prison, because if there's no hope, then what is left? And if you are, then that's
Right.
the sort of integrity, I guess, that you need to follow through with. Sounds a bit heavy, but hopefully that's an extreme example that that doesn't get much worse than that. Yeah.
Right, right. Yeah, I appreciate that example. So so you work with different entrepreneurs and business professionals like that. So what exactly do you do for them?
So I help them kind of find people making life quite hard, or because they have received, like I did, received ways of how you do things, like that, being the way he was. From our parents, we just sort of go through on autopilot. So I kind of help people understand and how they're living their life, but open them up to various other ways of being and doing things. I just feel like a lot of people who work at that level give a lot of themselves. I mean, obviously there are benefits that may be monetary or ego massaging, but I think a lot of people, they give a lot. They give a lot. And there's a lot of responsibility. A company director is, you have all these people who earn their living by working in your company, and especially with what we're experiencing this year, is that the responsibility for those people who the responsibility in keeping the company going, and making good decisions for the company and for the people in it, and taking care of those people at the same time. So there's a lot going on. There's lots of moving parts, as people say. And so what I try to do is help by, it's really just sort of talking things through with them, I guess, essentially. I mean, that, it's like coaching, to kind of see things in a different way and see things from a different perspective, that gives them options. Because sometimes you feel like you've only got, and helping people see that there's other ways of navigating through a situation, gives them a bit of space, a bit of choices, and the choices that I make are important. And I think that you trying to do the best for them, and that in turn makes them think that they're working in the right place. It's a good place to work. What is, and to get, I think that is develop. That sort of engagement from your employees is just so important, because if everybody's pulling in the same direction and they have faith in you and they respect you and they want it to, then that's when the magic happens, really, and people can do amazing things.
Absolutely. I've always believed that if you take care of your employees will take care of you. And
Yeah.
that's something that my father taught me when I was really young. And I've always tried to go through life like that. In general, if you take care of the people around you, they'll take care of you. Um,
Mm.
One thing that I have noticed, especially in these times with COVID and whatnot, there seems to be a spike in people who are trying to branch out and become entrepreneurs and do their own
Mm.
thing. Um, so for someone who isn't a natural born leader, or for someone who maybe not, maybe they might not just want to be in a leadership role, um, is that person still coachable in order to maximize their potential?
They want to be, if they want to be coachable. I mean, you have to get permission to coach. Uh, so you can't, and so that permission comes from them, and them letting you in, saying, okay, yeah, I'm looking for support here. Is down to me as a coach to help them unravel excuse me, what's going on. So I always think it's a bit like, it's like having a big bucket, and there's loads of stuff in the bucket, and there's like mud, and what you're looking into is to find the gems. And so I like to, it's like an inquiry for the both of us. So to the murky bucket and say, oh, what's that? And they might say, oh yeah, that's that thing that happened to me when I was 12 years old or something. And then you realize, oh, responding to that thing that happened when you were 12, you can just let that go. Actually, if that's what you want to do, you don't have to be. And so, it just opens up other ways of seeing things, and of differently. And so, yeah, I mean, when people are coachable like that, it's a joy, but some people maybe like some sort of defensive attitude, and you've got to work with that, because that's one of the things that they can get clear on, that they're not worth it or worthy, or they could never do this, that, or the other. And that's not true. We're all capable of lots of amazing things, but we need to have that confidence that we can pull it off. So it's helping and become coachable. Then there's so much available to you. And I have worked with some people who, and for me, that's like, I'm not going to take their money if I can't get them a result. So for me, that is a kind of if you're not prepared to try anything new, if you're not prepared to see things differently, then maybe that, because coaching's not for everyone. Maybe some people need counseling or something like that. So in order to get into a situation where they could then be coached, I think just being really clear with people is the best policy, and not just taking their money, and when able to access what you're showing them.
Right. Uh, I think it's something you said, that they have to want to
Mm.
be coachable. That stuck out to me, um, because I think in life in general, uh, in order to move forward, you have to want to move forward. Um, Same with like with being able to be coached. You have to want to be able to be coached, and you have to be open to that. One of the things that I talk about on my show a lot is accountability and
Mm.
introspection, which is something that not a lot of people enjoy all the time. um, how do you go about coaching someone that so that they can achieve that introspection?
I think a motivation is a big part. I think sometimes it's like a lack of vision sometimes that holds people back because they need to goals that is exciting and motivating, and it's something that they really want. So sometimes I have to spend a bit of time with them, create that vision to start off with before they feel motivated to go for it. And then once they feel motivated to go for it, help stack sort of small steps so they're always making progress, and so they're not, the steps aren't too big, and they can find their way and not feel like I can't do that, so I'm not going to do that homework. Or what you really want is for them to have something that's in bite-sized chunks so they can grow in confidence and realize that little steps that you make, when you turn around and have a look, you've actually come a long way. And if you've come that far, well, then you can do it. But I think to be able to drive yourself forward is really the place to get to. And if you can enough that you really want, this takes you back to the values thing that we were talking about before, in a way, is once you realize what's really important to you, so you can go out and get it. And if you've got help, so that you can build your confidence and forward. And so it's great when people get to the point where they check in with me, maybe once a week or so, to tell me. It's great when they come back and they're excited to tell me something, because that lets me know that they're motivated, and that that those seeds grow and become something bigger, because it becomes exciting for them. They're seeing a difference in them. When we see a positive difference in ourselves, it's always exciting, isn't it? When whether it's like you can run further than you've ever run before, or you've lost weight is much better than it's ever been before. That is motivating, because you think, well, if I got this far, then there's no reason to believe that I can't get that far. So I think motivation is a really good thing.
Absolutely, I would have to agree with that. I did not go to college. My sister, who just turned, she's actually turning 19 this month. She has decided that she wants to take some time off and explore entrepreneurship. She has a business venture that she's really excited about. She wants to try and do that before attending college, and my parents aren't too thrilled about it. They want her to go straight to college. Um, do you think that there are benefits to jumping right into college, even if you don't quite know what you want to do in life yet, or would you recommend people wait until they know what they really want to do?
I think a question that people are asking themselves more and more now, isn't it? Because it's so expensive, and so
Yes, it is.
it's like you want something that much. I think it's difficult for young people to know that. For me, they felt they did know that's what they wanted to do, and that's what they are currently doing. But for sure, courses that they were going to were going to take them in the direction that was something that they loved. So I feel like maybe that was all. I just think, and both my kids took a year out before they went to college, and they travelled. An au pair in Spain, so she's like fluent in Spanish now. Her Spanish is amazing. Yeah, that was a good move.
Wow.
Yeah, my son, when he went all over like South America and all sorts of places, and I feel for him that was a, a really good thing. Is a good thing to do. A bit difficult at the moment, but I do think travel as a person, and I think for me, I went and lived in Australia for 6 months. And I know I had some jobs, and then I sort of
Oh
felt there was a
wow.
bit missing, and then I actually just threw it all up in the air, and then went to work in Australia for 6 months. And I tell you, I reinvented myself out there because there's no one could see me. It was just like you can make all these mistakes, and no one's going to know. So I just felt, and then when I came back, I walked into a job almost straight away because I obviously exuded some sort of through those 6 months of working. I was working on a newspaper in Melbourne. The owner gave me a car and stuff so that I could go around and interview people. It was just like, is this really happening? But it was like one of my final school reports from my tutor at school said something like, Caroline has a France. I've still got that report around somewhere. It's just like, oh, that's how he's a grown man with my lack of competence. But and so I think that going away for me was, yes, I was like, I was invisible, just could reinvent myself, and no one could see me, making all these mistakes. And I came back and I was definitely more confident. So I think that meant that to people. If you're going to spend money on something, you could go and grow yourself a bit before you kind of throw the money at college. It's not available to everyone, is it? That kind of stuff. But I was working, I was getting paid, and I actually made a bit of money so that when I came back, I could to live. But that's not available to everybody. But I just think if it is available to you, then is it definitely a good move. Once you go through college, then it's all costing money, isn't it? And then out the other end, you need to kind of start work, maybe getting, if your sister starting a business. Once you start it, you got to keep it going. So the
Right.
opportunities to magical time and another part of the world, or whatever that might be for you, might not even be that. It might be to go and get involved in a project that's love to be involved in, and maybe it isn't your main business. But I think so many young people are really entrepreneurial these days because there's so many sort of there's no rules in a way of what it is to be an entrepreneur. I mean, there are rules, but really it's just, if it's you and it's just you building something that you love, then that's the thing. And then if you feel that you wished you'd studied this seriously at college, well, then maybe when you already know a bit, or you know what you want to know, or what you want to get out of it. So I think it's easy to go with your parents' college, but if you don't really know what it is you want or want to get out of it, then you can come out the other end with, it's still not really, in a way. You might have a college degree or whatever says you've ticked all these boxes. Are you ready to throw yourself into the thing that's going to be the thing? So yeah, I'm kind of but don't tell your parents I said so.
No worries, no worries. um I agree with that 100%. I have noticed that with a lot of my friends who did go to college, a lot of them aren't even working in the field that they went to
Yeah.
school for. And they just went because their parents wanted them to go right to college. So now that they're in debt for something that they don't really want to do,
Yeah.
so I talk to my sister about this a lot, and I tell her, like, if you know that you have this business venture that you and your friend want to do, and you're already actively uh making strides towards doing it, and I mean they already have customers
Right.
lined up and
Mm,
things like that. I keep telling her to
mm,
pursue it and put your all into it, and then down the line, if you find something that college can do for you to help your business, then go for that.
yeah. I just think there's so many young people doing amazing things. It's a great way to start, isn't it?
Yep, absolutely. Um, so I want to switch gears here for a minute.
Mhm.
I noticed in your initial message to me,
Oh
you
yeah,
mentioned that you played drums in the Brazilian Carnival, the
yeah.
2012
A whole
Olympic
other
floating
life.
ceremony, and the remake of
Yeah.
Peter Pan.
Oh,
I'm so
oh,
intrigued by that. How did that come about?
that was such a time. So, I so my son is a musician, and he would go to sort of like groups in the holidays, and through going to sort of like take him there and pick him up, I got to know the people, and they were like, "Oh, this isn't just for kids. We're going to have an adult group." And I thought, "Oh well, I give that a go," because at school, I'm at school. I was like every lunchtime, every after school, I was having music lessons or in rehearsals for this, that, and the other. I got the council, uh, where I lived, gave me free private music lessons because for student talent, they would give you free private music lessons. Unfortunately, my instrument was the euphonium. I don't know if you've heard it. It's just like this big, huge metal curly thing, and it was very uncool. And so just ditched it basically, and hadn't played music for years before that experience when I went to take my son to the music thing. So I came back the next day and they did an adult class. And at the end of it, the guy who taught it said, "Oh, you did, you really, it was really impressive," sort of thing. And I thought nothing of it. And then the next year that he was going to do that holidays, I went again, and so I got really into it. And then I went home and look, find someone to teach me more of this kind of music because I was really enjoying it. And the percussion is completely new to me. And the name of this guy called Jazz Jayasuriya, and I went back then to this guy because I was thinking he seems to do these courses, and they were like, "That's the guy that taught us." So then I got so I was with him, and because once you're in that, there's a group of people that you see every so often when you're doing these workshops and stuff for me, and I was loving it. And also for me, it was great to have something that was just for me because I was working really hard, and so it was just great to have that thing that was just for me. It's bonkers. No one else in my family was interested in it at all. So for me, and then after doing a few of those courses, I sort of thought, well, I want to do this more. I want to do this every day. I don't want to do it when you go on the residential course. I want to do it like every week. So I started looking, and I found a Sarizo School of Samba. And I went, there was like the Lord Mayor's parade one year, and I went and checked them out. They were wearing these crazy costumes, but the music was what really appealed to me. And so I just turned up there one week, and they were like, "Okay, we'll get you a drum." And because I had the experience that I'd got through these weekends courses and stuff, I wasn't that, but and that's when it all started. I was the 2009, I think that was. And so I started going every week, and then I started going like twice a week, and I played all the drums, all the big drums. I like the big drums. And it was started by two Brazilian brothers who were from Rio, and would there's a big carnival, normally not this year, of course, in London called Notting Hill Carnival, celebration of Black cultural music. And although it's not a celebration of Brazilian music, the Brazilians have kind of snuck in there because it's a big thing in Brazil, and they can bring some amazing talents. And so they amazing floats that they and then we all take them down the road and stuff. And so it's a huge thing. Notting Hill Carnival, it goes on for a long weekend. And so I kind of got into that, and I started doing Notting Hill Carnival with those people. And then of course there's quite a lot of opportunities, especially in a city like London, for playing in nightclubs. We do that like once a month we would have our own nights where we would invite other people. So all this time sort of developing that music. Bedroom, poor neighbours, learning to play the drums. But then they already had to contend with my son. But then the next door neighbours did give us the drum kit, so they must have been expecting it. So yes, so playing in London clubs, that was really exciting, and then other opportunities came up, to other countries like Germany, and do their equivalent, I guess, of Notting Hill Carnival, but in Germany. So at least so have great fun with all your friends and everything from the band. And then in 2012 we did the Olympics, and so we were chosen by the Brazilian team, who hand over to Brazil was the bit that we did. And so we were chosen, that samba school was chosen to sort of lead that, so to get all the players together and to practice the music and the dance that you had to do with the music in order to do that, the closing ceremony. So that on stage in a ridiculous costume, and with all of those people in the stadium, that was an amazing experience. So that we did that. And then in 2013 had an opportunity. It was kind of like a once in a lifetime opportunity, because some friends of mine from that group were going to play in Rio. I just knew that if I didn't do it then, it was never that opportunity. So some really close friends of mine from that group were for 6 months, and then get into to play in the carnival, which isn't easy to get into. If you're playing music, if you're a dancer, it's easier to get into because you basically buy the costume and they will stick you on a float, and that is an amazing experience in itself, I'm sure. But for me, it was always about the music. And so I really practiced that year. I was never been as sharp on those drums as I was that year. And then eventually I moved Brazil, into Rio, and it was always touch and go whether they would actually let me play. It's taken very seriously. It's a huge part of their culture, so they're not just going to let anyone in. It's who you know. So Mestre Esteves, who was one of the founders of the Paris School of Samba, I was with their group, and then I was only about like one night before that I knew I got in, and that was an amazing experience. I would say that is a bucket list tick for anybody to go and watch the Grupo Espacial, the best parade. in Carnival. It's just like your eyes are full. It's amazing. When you watch there's so much money goes into it as well, but when you're watching them go, it's just extraordinary when they're all sort of parading down Avenida, as it's called, where that now takes place. And there were loads of other opportunities there playing, during that period. It's just amazing. So that was a great experience. And then the other experience that you're talking about was Make of Peter Pan, which I can't remember when it was, sort of a couple of years after that. Just to come and play in, it's like a global village. I have to say, I watched that film and it was my expectations from what I experienced in the making of it. I think the making of it was probably much more fun, but it was just incredible. So there are these two big aircraft hangars on the outskirts of London, and they just built inside one of them. It was just incredible, with like real live plants and everything. And we had these extreme costumes to wear. It was really heavy drums to play, but it was just extraordinary. It's like somebody plucked you out of into this amazing experience. So every day they would come and collect us in a bus and take us out to the aircraft hangars, and then you'd go into the costume and makeup. And in between times, they fed us really well. They looked after us really well. It was amazing. It was such good fun, and everybody would just start playing and singing on your lunch break. And you'd sit at a table, and then someone with a massive spear would come and sort of like put their in front of you, sit next to you and eat their dinner. It was just a magical time, actually. And I was with friends, who have no ridiculous costumes, but it was a magical, it was like 10 days we did that for, and we got paid for it as well. It was, bucket list tick that I didn't even know that I wanted to do, but yeah, that was a great experience. Yeah, that what I really
sounds
like
like a
about
great experience.
yeah, it really was. And what I like about that is that you could never have predicted it. And I had to sort of like take time off work to go and do it. But for me, that just sort of, it felt like that I had created the kind of lifestyle for myself that meant that I could do that, take 10 days out of my life to go. Yeah, it's brilliant.
Wow. It sounds like you've definitely lived a really full and wonderful life so far.
Yeah.
Um, that's awesome. Before we end this, is there any advice that you would give to someone who is trying to find their passion in life but hasn't quite gotten there yet?
It's to give yourself a lot of experiences, really, to have lots of experiences. And I think important it is almost to look back at your childhood, because if you think that what I've just been saying about ending up doing that, being on a film set and all of us started playing the euphonium when I was like, I don't know, 8 years old or something, that would never have happened, playing music. And so it was when I got back into it that I realized that had been missing for me. So I think it's quite good for us to go back to what we enjoyed as little kids in a way, because I think that's quite a sort of pure enjoyment. The things that we do, so boring, aren't they? Some kids are really good at sport, and I think it's really good to go back to that stuff that really used to be so passionate and think about what it was with those things that engaged you so much. So whether it was like cooking or all of those things, when you as you get older and you follow your path, whether you get you get to of you, and all of that stuff, you kind of lose contact with that innocence that you had as a child, and all that meant to you. How you could maybe spend hours on your own drawing and drawing and drawing, and people would be like, I used to get told to things like that, but all you really wanted to do was draw or paint or whatever that was. So just keep things that have brought you joy in the past, because they might well be the key to the thing that's going to give you joy in the future. That's from that sort of innocent, childish delight that you could spend hours absorbed in something, able to do that. And also to go to what's really important to you, kind of understand yourself and thinking about what it is that is important to you. Because if you enjoy helping people, or whatever that might be, then that's a kind of clue. If you've always been a helpful person, or you just like to help out and that kind of, that's a kind of the things that you might enjoy doing day to day. Because our lives are made up of just day every day, then that's remarkable. So if you build yourself like if like your sister, if you want to you feel is interesting and that's what you want to do, then your actual day-to-day life, the tasks that you do every day, things that will feed you as an adult. And so how do you build those in? It doesn't mean to say, being an entrepreneur or that kind of stuff, but it is about how you understand that the things that you do every day are the things that you're going to, if those things are things that you enjoy, then you'll have enjoyable life. Build on that. So, for example, if you try to think of example now, if you're and that you're going to be, working with numbers every day. For some people, that is just perfect. If you're an actuary, you fill the numbers and sort of what goes into how people work out their insurance or that kind of thing. But some people love that. They just love nothing more than to do that. If that's what you love, then the task that you're doing every day will be pleasurable for you. And then, there's other there's other things that you might enjoy doing for hobbies that would be completely different. But to get connected with that and what you get out of those things, I think is really important. Um, work in an environment where you get on with the people, and for some people, it really matter what they're doing so much as the people that surround them, that they get on with them, that they have fun with them. Life, because that's what they get out of every day, is just that contact with those people who really get them. And so some people, when they leave their job, it's like they leave their team, it's like they're brokenhearted. So I think there's all sorts of things you can do um, to help you navigate all that stuff, but it does take a little bit of work.
Awesome, awesome. I really do appreciate you uh, taking the time out of your day to speak with me.
It's been a
And
pleasure.
thank you so much, Caroline, for being a guest on my show. It has been a real pleasure speaking with you, and I hope that in the future I can have you back on.
That'd be great. Well, thanks. Yeah, thanks for inviting me. And yeah, I look forward to the rematch.
Awesome. All right. Well, Caroline, you take care and you have a wonderful day.
Thanks,
Okay.
Marcus. Bye.
Bye. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank Miss Caroline Stagg once again for coming on and being a guest on Third Eye Podcast. Uh, please join me next week for part 2 of Coping with Mental Health, featuring my wonderful wife, Amanda Callahan. that will be a very, very insightful conversation, and I look forward to it. I hope you all are being kind to one another and loving each other, especially in these hard times. I love you all, and there's absolutely nothing you can do about it. So, have a wonderful night and take care.